We get impatient. We need to guard against that because we know in the end, God's outcome is our best outcome. This is my Bible from college. I got it the year before I went to college. It's 22 years old. How's it going? And my sister gave it to me, and one of the first things I did with this Bible is I went to a conference where I was listening to a teacher teach a bunch of us young guys about the women that were going to come into our lives. And he took us to Proverbs 31. Anybody ever read Proverbs 31? Ladies, it's a great chapter, just for you to kind of know what God's idea of a virtuous woman is. And so he taught this to us. And then at the end, he gave us a challenge. He said, hey, fellas, here's my challenge to you. You're going to have all kinds of girls that you can date. You're going to go out with a bunch of them, but there is one woman that God has for your life. And she should, as closely as possible, resemble the woman described in Proverbs 31. And he issued this challenge. He said, listen, fellas, you can glom onto the first one that gloms onto you, or you can wait for God's best in your life. Choose to wait for the woman who resembles this description. So I wrote at the bottom of this chapter in Proverbs 31, wait for her mark, 18 years old. About a year and a half later, I met this girl, this hot little filly. And her name was Eleanor, and she inspired poetry in me and all the things that are great about love, and we dated for about 11 months. Now, 11 months in, I got kind of nervous about getting serious at such a young age, and I hid behind the cloak of God and said that God told me to break up with you, so I dumped her. And about 6 months of going on, trying to get back together and not, she finally got tired of my shenanigans, and she dumped me. And it was like a flat line in our relationship. It was just done, gone. She started dating a guy that wasn't anything like me. And thanks for that, babe. Anyway, but it was over. And I was an emotional mess, and deservedly so. I'd made a mess of our relationship. And I remember, though, in a time of lucidity, coming back to this chapter, reading those verses again, and lamenting over the fact that I'd lost my Proverbs 31. Not knowing that God, how God was going to replace this one. So I wrote in my Bible, keep waiting. 19 years old. But as you can probably tell, the clouds cleared. We went through about, 13, 14 months of being separated. Both of us grew up a ton. We came back to our relationship and cultivated a friendship. And then from that, we just felt led of God to just really pursue each other in our relationship. I remember the day that I had the privilege of asking my beautiful wife to marry me, and she said yes. Shortly after that, I came back to this same text, and as a 21-year-old, I wrote these words, done waiting. Now, I tell you that story because the best things in life don't always happen right away. The best things in life cannot be gotten with a second mortgage all the time. The best, we're in that mess right now. Who wanted the best things in life and wasn't waiting? Okay. The best things in life often come on God's timetable, which is vastly different from ours. And the test of our love of God, of our trust in Him, is to wait on Him. So what in your life is making you impatient? Is this your chance to get a shot in the arm and to remember that you should be waiting for God's best? Someday I pray that whatever it is in your life, you get to say, done waiting. But until that day, my prayer is that you'll be faithful, that your love will be patient, and that God will reveal Himself to you. So, love is patient. Love means you have a long fuse, and love means you wait for the good things to come as God desires. Let's talk about kindness with the time we have left. Well, what must I do to love kindly? The Greek word there is krestuatai. I'm not going to make you guys say that one. But it just means simply be kind. And this is that active side of love. We need to go out and be willing to show kindness in our relationships and in our world in general. I love that about our church, We are being transformed, I trust, by God into a church that is willing to get their hands dirty and go outside of ourselves and make a difference in the world around us. Whether it's I Am Hope Cafe, whether it's Feed the Bay, whether it's the myriad of things that life groups around here volunteer to take care of. I love hearing those stories. But we never would get to the point of making a difference in those ways if we at first did not choose to see the need. When we take on Christ, we take on His lenses. Did you know that? The Bible describes us in our spiritual darknesses as having a veil on. And when Christ comes into our lives, the veil is removed. And I think another part that comes in is that God gives us some corrective lenses, and we start seeing the world through His eyes. And we start understanding things in a different way. And when that occurs, then loving kindness, love in a kind fashion, is able to flow through us. But listen, we can get so busy. Anybody here got a busy schedule? We should have like a busy schedule off. Mine's busier than yours. As Americans, we just love being busy. When you go outside of this country, most people don't know what we're doing. Why are you guys so freaked out with all these places you have to be and things you have to do? Are they really improving your life? And if we take a step back, a lot of times we'd probably be saying, no, not really. My kid's not going to be a professional athlete. Who knew that 16 hours of sports every week was, not going to end up paying for anything around here? Oh, but he's better for it. What? Get a grip. Anyway. But we out-busy ourselves. And when we get so busy, we get too busy to look through the lenses that God has given us, and we fail to see the needs around us. Jesus was all about seeing the needs. Listen to this text. It says, as He went along, this is John chapter 9, verse 1. As He went along, just circle those words. This love and kindness that we're meant to show is an as-you-go-along thing. It cannot and should not be determined by our schedule. If we can fit it in, we'll do it. No. Love is a lot of times inconvenient. Has anybody noticed that? It doesn't come along and fit nicely into our schedule all the time. We have to be willing to break from our schedule. So as Jesus was going along, and He just made a busy or a matter of life of this, He was just always available. He saw a blind man, it says, from birth, and the disciples asked Him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? This is a common question of the day. Jews of that time had created kind of a karmic relationship between them and God. If we honor Him, He honors us. If we dishonor Him, He'll slam us. And so they had taken like the second commandment of the old 10 commandments there in Exodus 20, verse 5, where it says, you shall not create any idols or worship them. And God said, hey, if you do choose to worship them, those who hate me like that, I will visit wrath on you for the third and fourth generations. This is where these guys got this idea, that if we mess with God, He's going to mess with us, and not only us, but our kids and their kids and their kids. And so these disciples aren't asking like some crazy question out of left field. They were really curious. Hey, here's a blind guy, Jesus. Who sinned? Did he sin to become blind? Or did his parents sin? Or you can infer his parents and grandparents and all that stuff. But Jesus is this habit of taking us Christians, those of us who delve into the areas of theology and try to understand Him more deeply, and He takes us by the shoulders and He says, wake up! Are you awake now? He says, it's not about your thinking about me. It's not about you having all your I's dotted, your T's crossed in the theological world. He says, listen, I'm about making a difference in the world. He takes these guys and he says, listen, fellas, neither this man nor his parents sinned. He says, but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. I don't have time to preach that, but the Bible speaks to every good thing, or everything working together for the good of those who love Him. It tells us in Ecclesiastes that He makes the sun shine and the rains fall on those who are wicked and those who are good. We're not in this karmic relationship with God where if we put good in, we get good out, and if we put bad in, we get bad out. It goes beyond that. It goes into His sovereignty. And at different times in our lives, you can be like Job, knocking it out, being good, being honorable, but because God wants to glorify Himself and He wants to teach you things that perhaps you don't know yet, He allows calamity to come on your life. And it's His classroom. And He teaches us these things as He appoints. And He does that so that you can learn things that will bring glory to Him in your life. I wish I had more time. But he goes on, he says this, verse 4. He says, as long as it is day, we must do the work of Him who sent me. He's saying, listen, fellas, as long as I got breath, as long as I'm waking up and I'm moving around here, I'm going to live to show kindness through my love. I'm not going to try to settle every theological debate. He could have done that, right? He could have gone to the temples and he could have just sat down and said, all right, let's just theologically parse all these verbs and make sure that we know everything that's right and true about God and not do anything about it. No, he says, listen, I want us to be active in how we live. He says, I'm going to wear myself out, doing whatever I can, as long as I'm here on the earth, to accomplish the work of the one who sent me. He says, night's coming when no one can work. He says, every one of us is going to face a time when we're no longer here on the earth, whether it's because Jesus returns in our time or whether it's because you and I just expire. We have a set amount of days. He says all of us should be working in those days. While he said it like this, while I'm in the world, I'm going to be the light of the world. That's just how we're going to roll, fellas.